Welcome back to another episode of the Architecture of Health. I'm Deb Voisin, and this week my guest is Christian Bates. He knows a lot about well being from a nutritional point of view, an ancestral point of view, and maybe even a spiritual point of view, and has a lot of experience in developing nutritional products that changed his mind about the most healthy ancestral lifestyles. His Instagram is Sculptor of Wellbeing, based with Bates and Longevity Power. Welcome to our show, Christian.
Thanks for having me, Deb.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you is actually this diverse toolkit you have, and I saw the word longevity with Longevity Power with one of the products you had worked on, and I also saw such a holistic point of view about health. I knew that we had to touch base to learn your story and how you could save the rest of us from wasting a lot of time on some of the aches and pains that tend to get us into this transformative space. So let's start right now. What are a few of the things that you learned about that shifted your philosophy towards what it is now in terms of being your best quality of life for the longest?
Well, I made a lot of what are I'd consider kind of classic mistakes over the years. But every time I got into something, like it gave me some initial benefits, and I was like, "Aha, eureka! I found like the way for me." But then over the years, I saw the pitfalls of it, and then like just was kind of forced to evolve. Kept some of the good things from that previous era, but then moved on to much more long lasting beneficial, actual, like tried and true things. So when I was 15, I lost 50 excess pounds of fat in 6 months. And this is back in like 2002, before you could just easily go online and like cross reference people's experiences, look at the comments. I had to take like the author's word for it on how to do something. So I got into like the whole low fat, high fiber craze, and it did help me lose weight. I started to run and bike like every day, and then eventually got into yoga and then into veganism. And so as I was like this developing teenager turning into a man, I was eating a very deprived diet, which I thought was like the panacea diet. I thought it was the ultimate. We are like frugivorous ape humans that are supposed to eat this way. And at first it like felt good. Like I felt like there was like a melting energy coming out of my skin, and I was getting into hot yoga. I took two yoga teacher trainings, including the Bikram yoga teacher training. And then I started to react to certain foods like agave nectar and a lot of the nuts and seeds I was eating, which are technically like 50% seed oils. Even if they're organic seed oils, they still have those high omega-6 fatty acid inflammatory issues. In my 20s, started to piece things together where like, okay, I need some more ancestral wisdom in what I put in my mouth every day, and slowly deconstructed the whole plant-based thing and got into much more of like an animal-based nutrition, ancestral nutrition. How do we eat in the wild, given that we are pretty much forced into agriculture? And then by the end of my 20s, was also realizing, okay, even though this yoga thing is awesome, like even now, today, 2 decades later, there's part of me that just wants to do like a 30-day hot yoga challenge. But I created so much repetitive stress with yoga. I created muscular imbalances. Like at first, it was great. Almost everyone who goes to yoga, like the first couple of years, it's great. You can heal, you stretch, you undo certain things, you get fitter in certain ways. But then over time, I was only doing yoga. I was barely even walking or hiking. I was just like, okay, I'm doing a hot 90-minute super class every day. I was also teaching two classes a day, so I was getting like 5 hours of heat, and I run hot. So it was like my constitution was just completely imbalanced. I didn't expect to end up that way. I didn't even expect to be a yoga teacher because I was already developing nutrition products at the time, but needed a day job. And when I started to go to the gym and just did some basic leg exercises, I healed my knees. So after 7 years of really rigorous yoga, I could barely run or even walk down a hill because my knees would just hurt. And that's because in yoga, you're basically creating strong quadriceps, but weak, loose hamstrings, which means muscular imbalance of your knees. But by doing weight training, just in like the first month of doing hamstring exercises, boom, I could run down a hill like fast without any issue. I was still doing yoga at the time, and then I started to do more like gymnastic stretching, like working on splits, doing all the stretches that a typical yoga class skips out on that I was like missing all those years.
Oh, that I could say so much about. I Our paths are so similar. No wonder Amelia wanted us to talk. I too, I taught yoga 15 times a week. It was like my beat all end all. I was almost only inside doing yoga. Then I transitioned. Then the hypermobility and flaccidity and the imbalances were just got my knee suffered. I had a torn ligament, and then I just kept cycling through. And the funny thing is, I found the more I did yoga, the worse my dance got. But the more I danced, the better I got at yoga. It wasn't a two-way street. And I think that's one thing you're alluding to is you need the you need the whole enchilada, and it needs to all help you move forward. The hamstrings are on the back of the body. They help you move forward, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And you went through that whole journey. I was vegetarian for the longest time. I'm already hypermobile. It just made me more floppy. And yet, I will say, I love that you used the word ancestral because not all of our ancestors were in the same place. European ancestors are in colder climates where there's more animal and fat, saturated fat that helps you get through the winter. And equatorial ancestral is slightly different. So Christian, where did that put you? What are you doing now? What happened with your nutritional line?
When I was 20, I launched my first nutrition product. It's called the Wild Bar. It was a superfood raw cacao meal replacement bar, and I was super proud of it. I was all about it. And then it was sweetened with agave nectar, and I started to not be able to eat my own bar. And we thought about switching to honey, but by the time that happened, uh, the company I had partnered with, the whole thing was just kind of collapsing. The raw vegan movement was kind of collapsing at the time too. And I decided to start my own business, which is called Longevity Power. So there's no more Wild Bar now, although one day I might relaunch it as more of an ancestral bar. And so instead of like a raw vegan superfood bar sweetened with agave, it'll be maybe something, full of whey and collagen and honey and, super adaptogens and things like that. And in starting my own business, I wanted to focus on adaptogens. So adaptogens are herbs and certain foods that help your body handle stress better, help it perform better amidst stress without stimulating it or really suppressing it the way a lot of herbs and ritual things do that people are into. So instead of coffee, I would do like a lot of functional mushrooms. And I wanted to just have like the most full on adaptogen sources ever. And that's what turned into Longevity Power. So as I let go of the plant foods, got into more ancestral foods, which is going to be like adaptogenic herbs. And now I feel like it's time to start launching actual animal based products. And so I launched a product called Ancestral Feast, which has like all the beef organs in one. So instead of having to take like 6 to 18 capsules of beef organ pills, which is kind of weird, like I love all those ancestral encapsulated beef organs supplement lines. Like I'm here because of them, but I do feel like it's a little disconnected to consume the most nutrient dense products like in a capsule where you're not even experiencing it. It's kind of like being an astronaut while trying to eat ancestral. So I turned it into a powder that actually tastes good that you can put it on your food.
What's and the name of it is Ancestral Feast?
Ancestral Feast. And then I also have Epic Beef Liver, which is beef liver combined with multi collagen powder.
And these are powders. right?
Yeah, everything I do now is powder. Instead of bar form, it's powder form. Because that way you can turn it instantly into like a drink or a food, and it's very versatile.
Okay, I gotta pause here because you and I both we get excited and we go hard on things, and that's how also with yoga I found only by doing it so much I got so much repetitive stress that I could really see the shape of the thing. I could see the shape of the thing because I pushed to the limit. So if and we're talking about the naturalness of the organ meats and what context in which to take them. And I gotta say, I cannot other than like a beautiful pate, I cannot handle most organ meats. And I will say the when I used to go to Europe every couple of years, there was some extended family members of my partner at the time. They really knew how to cook with the organ meats, and I didn't even know some of the time when I was having them. I love that you're picking a solution where you're getting them, you're able to incorporate it into the diet without having to change everything about your lifestyle. Can you tell me though, what would be, can you overdo it? Can you overdo it? How do you decide the dose?
Everyone's different. For some people who, if you're totally new to organs and your dose is too high, I mean, you could probably throw up. But if you've been doing it for a while in small amounts, it might be time to up the ante so that you're really saturating your body with all those super available minerals and vitamins and just like getting rid of any deficiencies that most people are walking around with, whether that's magnesium or any of the B vitamins, even vitamin A, retinol, that's really high in liver that some people are cautious of. I think it's probably don't have to be that cautious about it as long as you're eating beef liver and not like polar bear liver that has like a toxic amount.
Some of the healing communities out there are much more into raw liver and then they put the frozen chunks in shakes, and I could never do that. But I know that this is part of the blueprint because in the wild, you look at commercial beef, almost everyone only eats the muscle meat. And in the wild, like if there's a puma killing its prey, it goes for the organs first. It goes for like the heart, the kidney, the liver, the eyeballs, the brain, and often will even leave the muscle meat behind. And an American version of an ancestral meat diet often omits the organs completely. So how did you figure this out for yourself that you needed these?
I had learned about organs, especially liver, like early on, because as I was transitioning from plant based to more animal based, and when I say animal based, it's almost like a synonym of ancestral because I'm trying to get most of my calories and micronutrients from animal foods and then filling in the gaps with plant foods, which is what most ancestral peoples do. Just most of your protein and fat is going to be animal based. And then your carbs and then certain nutrients that you can't get from animal products, which is going to be mainly fibers and medicinal compounds that your gut flora just really loves. Then that's like ancestral omnivore. So I learned that yeah, most we're supposed to eat nose to tail, and not only are we not supposed to just have lean muscle meat, but also fat and collagenous portions of the muscle, tendons, bone broth. And then by having nose to tail, you're actually giving your body what it evolved to require.
So how does and I'm the same. I started making bone broths and unwinding a lot of things, reversing a lot of things that I had thought were true. The one thing too about veganism, and I've got to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure Weston Price back in the 1910s, 1920s, when he traveled the world and observed so many healthy smiles, cavity-free, broad faces.
Yeah, he,
Uh,
he was definitely like my red pill of ancestral nutrition kind of alt pipeline. Seeing all the pictures he took of people's smiles, where someone who's eating a more modern agricultural diet, their teeth are all jacked up. But then someone who's eating more animal based ancestral, they have like the perfect smile.
and I believe one of his observations was that there weren't any indigenous vegans. And the hypothesis, at least that I've heard, and I can't attribute it directly, was that you can't produce multiple generations of healthy children on a purely vegan diet.
I think that everything should hit the spot. Even if it's more bitter, even if it's a little weird, I still try to make it just like I'm not just trying to get it down. I'm like, oh, is this even right? It's like, ooh, that's still like, sparked. Even if it's like a something really high in liver, I want to make it as gourmet or as like super shake delicious as possible. And because I just believe that when it feels good, like your body's going to utilize it better. If it's a little bit off, I don't think that it is, even if it's the exact same nutrition, if it doesn't feel or taste as good going down, it's just not quite as as nourishing. So I'll usually start my day with an adaptogen elixir, which is kind of like a coffee replacement. I've been sensitive to caffeine for years. I haven't really touched caffeine or chocolate in about a decade. But before that, I was a chocolate addict. I would have chocolate stone grinders running all day in my house. I had my chocolate based meal replacement bar. I was in love with cacao butter, which has it smells like Easter morning. I want to get back to being able to have caffeine. I think I will. Eventually I'll become a coffee addict at some phase in my future where it's like super gourmet, shade grown, mold free or whatever type of coffee. And my body will love the caffeine. Right now, the caffeine, I don't know, I think it just like spikes cortisol in me and just makes me feel like I'm not ready for it. It's like too much of a drug. But if you do love coffee, which half of people adore it, then I'm all about the highest quality coffee and usually like blending it with adaptogens so that that energy lasts longer and isn't such a strong hit. And you could do like bulletproof with like butter and proteins and stuff. But I'll just start with a hydrating adaptogen elixir. So I'll put some of my longevity power adaptogens with spring water, which I harvest myself in the coast here in California. And if you don't have a spring near you, you actually might. Not all springs are created equal. Some springs are too heavy in minerals or are just not that potable, meaning they might have bacteria. But some springs are literally the best, most hydrating, most delicious, softest water on the planet. And if you don't have that, I would recommend RO water that maybe you add some minerals back to. And typical filters are not enough. It's still like mostly tap water. And then I'll put a little sea salt, maybe some other electrolytes in that elixir, and it will taste like a coffee drink. It will taste like just so delicious. I'll feel so hydrated that I don't need to eat yet. I'll coast on that for maybe a couple hours, then I'll eat something. And when I break my fast, it's usually not with a shake because that might be a little too carby. I'll do something more high protein, high medium fat. So like a steak with veggies and some kind of sauce. And then I'll have like a more sugary dessert that'll be like something with like whey and honey and stuff like that. I had a small, really early dinner the night before, then a substantial earlier breakfast makes sense. But if I had a bigger later meal the night before, I might as well wait to eat at least a little bit till I really get my body, craving calories.
And I love that word. We're talking about the craving, how you were saying it has to like, you want it to hit the spot and be an ooh, not a have to. And that's one reason, guys, that I did my sprinting experiment with all these beautiful skirts. I wanted it to be like, ooh, what does this look like? What about this angle? Not a, oh, I got to put in my time. And the mechanistic way of treating the body rather than the bioelectric, juicy, soulful things that we are. So, how does this emanate out into your other? How has the design of your life changed in other ways?
Well, I love going to the gym, but I've gone to the gym for so long now that even though I crave the ritual, I mean, once I step into a gym, I'm just like, freedom. Because unlike trying to work out at home or doing other health habits at home where there's distractions, when you go to a gym or some kind of workout class or whatever, where there are no distractions, I mean, it's just like freedom. It's like, okay, I can just focus on one thing at a time. There's no ADHD present. And because I have like always a million ideas, I'm prone to the ADHD kind of uh, needing to structure my life more deliberately issues. And at the gym, though, like I'm not just doing weights and machines. I'll step into the stretch room and do gymnastic stretching. Like I'll try to make it more organic, outsidey, but not always because I do have certain injuries where like full range natural movement can irritate them that I've been working on for a while, although some things are getting a little bit better. One huge mistake I made going from yoga to the gym is I just like overstretched my hypermobile shoulders in yoga. Like I didn't realize how much damage I had done. I thought the dull pain was good pain. And then going into the gym and doing a lot of medial delt flies, I thought that that dull pain was good pain. And then later on realized, okay, actually there's a much more subtle thing on like what's truly good feeling versus like endurance type of pain, which I don't even consider pain, versus okay, you're irritating something. And I didn't know, I didn't really, I had kind of tricked myself, or I had been tricked because in some yoga classes there's like push, 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 and so now I'm being very gentle in certain areas, and if there's a part of my body that I can just go really heavy with no issue, then I'll go heavy there. But it's like really important to like not wear out your joints because like my shoulder sockets, according to the latest MRI, don't have as much collagen as they should, which I was like, I was like shocked for a week when I saw those MRIs. I was like mad at my shoulder doc because I was scared that I was going to have to dial back my shoulder exercises and lose certain physique things that I want. But over the last few months, since I got that MRI, I've made a huge amount of progress just by like being patient, going even slower with certain movements, lighter weight, and it's all paying off now.
I love that you it helped you listen. It's information that helped you pay attention. I remember I was doing a really intense movement practice with some excellent practitioners, but being hypermobile, I couldn't feel when I was violating myself. And people who are extra flexible are at much higher risk of injury than people who are stiff. That my teachers would even tell me that, but I couldn't hear my own limit. I cracked my own rib. I tore several things, and I could do these measurable tasks, but it took another teacher that forced us to close our eyes and just get to the floor without any negative sensation. I was like, "What? Is that possible?" And like, and we just spent a couple of minutes with our eyes closed, finding a path with zero friction because the most rewarding, expense free, lasting, durable movement is going to be frictionless, almost like we're floating because all the joints will have harmony and we will not be at the end of our range. So that's the other thing is I learned end range, going to the very end of any range, whether it's financial, emotional, physical, is where there's danger that something can break versus the whole spectrum, all sorts of space in between the end ranges. It's like believing in only the colors white and black when they really don't. They rarely even exist in nature. Instead, there are billions or millions of shades of gray that we can find peace inside of. So, and I love that your one thing about shoulders, guys. I've just learned this is no, I learned this. I because I'm so hypermobile and have all these injuries as well. I tore my shoulder doing some trick hanging off of something, and now I know it's safer. Something that moves forward is safer than something that's in place. So I'm like, oh, if I locomote, eventually I'm locomoting on the jungle gyms, and they use more. These diagonals use more fibers. All this tissue can lock into my spine a lot better when I'm actually moving more like someone in the animal kingdom, which is why we have such mobile shoulders in the first place. So we're always upping that game to find where's the ooh, Where's the little lift? Where's the peace in what we're doing?
Have you ever seen someone who just was trying to, whether it's a father and his child or a really good boss and his or her employee, where they're just like really patient with someone as they teach them and have absolutely no rush in that moment. I feel like I'm finally there with my own body when I'm working out. Instead of trying to rush through any kind of rep, I'm slowing it down and just being aware of the whole process and enjoying that rather than feeling impatient or frustrated around it. And I like being that person who can do that now.
Yeah, what do they say in the military? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. 1% gains, they compound. But if you're constantly getting injured, which I was, you can't make any progress constantly getting injured.
I love the explosive energy of, say, a lift, but then the negative when you're going back down, slowing that down and maintaining control the whole way. I mean, that's real power.
And along those lines, that's one reason the muscles in our body that help us as we yield back into gravity. We're resisting that gravity as we lower ourselves to the ground. Our body perceives those as way less effort than they actually are. So that ride back down, whether it's a chin up or whether you're lowering the weight, that ride back down to the ground is really where a huge amount of peaceful, low stress gains exist, because everything is designed to help us thrive in a field of gravity. So I know that one thing that I saw on your bio on Instagram was also this journey, a philosophical journey. I know that and I would call the way I used to think New Age, and I'm in a different place with all sorts of awakenings that have happened. Is there anything, and that also weaves into this story, this like, ooh, of wow, there's an order. There's everything is arranged around a few basic principles in nature. It's economy, it's gravity, it's these these inherent shapes that are harmonizing and are a fractal, an ever repeating fractal. Like that's why my show has the Fibonacci golden mean proportion. Is this is a there's a design. And that's one reason I call my show the architecture of house is health. Is there's a design if we just just let it see it, just witness it, let it uncover itself. Is there anything you want to say in that realm?
I was raised, very light Christian. I would take the offering plate at the church as a kid. I even played the piano. I memorized all the hymns for a couple services. But then in the sixth grade, I learned about evolution and Western philosophy, and I called myself a total atheist. I would yell at kids during recess while we're playing Foursquare, "When you die, it's nothingness." And I just continued doubling down on that kind of black and white binary thinking of, oh, it's either like superstitious spirituality or scientism that's, Big Bang, we're not here for any reason, it's all happenstance. But then in high school, I got into more of the Eastern spiritual stuff, yoga, definitely New Age stuff. I wasn't willing to call it New Age, but it was. And I started to call myself agnostic, but I was still like totally resisting the God thing and Jesus thing. And in my 20s, like there was something about the peace of faith with God that I was like, but I was still resisting it. And then in my early 30s, I just started to like slowly let it in. When I learned about St. Thomas Aquinas, who was a Catholic monk from hundreds of years ago, he had all these reason-based definitions of God. So his definitions of God were simultaneously biblical and like scientific, like even an atheist would believe in them. So one of his definitions is God is the causal force from which all things arise. So if everything you see, everything that exists was set into motion by something else, that was set into motion by something else. If you go all the way back, not just in time, but in every moment, there's a causal force that everything is created from. And you can call that God. And, that's a science based atheist could be like, oh, that's just like 0 point energy or something. But you would also have to admit that, okay, this is also our creator. It's something we all have in common. It's something we have a personal relationship with. It's something we can meditate on, find solace in, pray on, and trust in, feel it's intrinsic to our biology. And that, just understanding that, just like on an intellectual level, brought a huge amount of peace that I was resisting for so many years. And then eventually that led me to, okay, what if this God, that calling God it is in the English language seems a little distant, so might as well call him he. What if this God is actually a little more humble than I thought and right there with me? And that eventually led me on into going to church every Sunday. I still have like my issues, with religion, learning about different denominations, like but at the same time, like just being able to trust in a God that is here for you, that put you here for a reason, is so good for our mental health. Like even if it was wrong, it would be so good. Like if you looked at yourself or some person, you're like, how do we give this person an outlook that is so nurturing to their life? It would be a deep faith. Just like a child, you're giving them containment. They have a faith and not a worry about how their life is being organized beyond their own capacity to organize it. I basically let go of all the pride of thinking I could do everything myself and trusting in God.
I love that. I have to say, I love that you used the word pride. I think I identified with my intellect and if I can figure anything out, I can work anything out. There was a lot of pride, and what you're saying too, of like if simply it's an outlook that there is a someone on your side, something, some energy, like some idea that things could go your way beyond your own will. And if you think about it, I only recently started going to church. I think my mom grew up with some very negative church experiences, so I was a nothing burger. But through COVID, when I saw who the happiest people were, all the Christian people I knew just seemed to be shiny. They're like, oh, we know what's up. Yeah, we're not worried. Yeah, God's got our back. I don't need anything in my body. This is a great thing. I've got a temple here. Why should I worry? So and then I was like, what? How could they not have to struggle intellectually like I do to arrive at that conclusion? And then I heard a service where the minister was talking about we our life is a gift. We did nothing to ask for this life. Someone else gave birth to us. That was a gift. Like our life starts as some kind of spark, some kind of gift, some kind of thing that no one can ever know. And to then revere this gift we've been given. And that's one reason I do like to look at our appreciation for our bodies. It doesn't have to be to get something. It can be a simple reverence to all the myriad of things that we have no control over that helped us arrive at this exact moment. Yeah. There are so many forces so much bigger than us. And that's where I was going kind of downhill with the new age, as I started to be like, I want like I want this, I want that, I want this. And that's kind of what I thought prayer was. I thought prayer was begging for things. And I was like, that's so low integrity. People acting a certain way and then begging for things and then doing bad things and acting like it doesn't matter. And now I understand the much more the context of humbling ourselves, forgiving ourselves, and moving forward in a way that serves ourselves and others.
I think there's a total parallel between how we nurture and exercise our body and our spiritual outlook. And it's one of your favorite words, Deb. It's an alignment. Because if we're like forcing something our way that's really not in alignment with what our body naturally wants, what life or God is like in all its wisdom is guiding us into, then we're going to create our own issues because of our own stubbornness. But if we align and like surrender to what has been given to us and tune in spiritually and with our body, that's where the real magic happens.
That reminds me when I used to teach the go clay method of primal posture, one of the things I would tell everybody is let go and let gravity. Because a lot of us had been these ideas built in culturally of like that we had to fight gravity to be tall versus let it align through us and let it plant us so deep down in the ground that we bounce back out. And that's one reason I love sprinting is if you wind yourself up over a small point and you just drop into that point, you pop out like a toy. You pop out like some kind of weird Jack in the Box toy alignment. So let's start thinking about our audience right now. We don't know if they're sitting in a car or they're cleaning their house. How would you share with them a simple thing they could do right now that brings them closer to this feeling of well-being, whether it's from a nutritional, physical, or spiritual point of view?
I could say a whole bunch of things. Right now, just make sure you're actually breathing and have a nice, erect spine, not like forced erect, but like
Relaxed
not
and
hunched
upright.
over.
Yeah, relaxed
Yes.
and upright.
It all depends on where someone, you can never like rigidly overwhelm yourself into perfection lifestyle. It's all about just like moving along and making the right baby steps or just one baby step every day with consistency. Like, so if there's just one little thing you can do today without delay, like don't wait till tomorrow, that's like usually enough to have a really consistent, constantly improving your health, your physical, mental, spiritual health every day without um, going down some dogmatic uh, healing journey that ended up not being right for you anyway. So if you are still consuming seed oils, boom, you replace them with butter today. Just like throw out your seed oils. That can be a great place to start. If you've only done yoga for the past week, you might want to actually do some strength training and work on like pulling, especially pulling muscles, so your back muscles, biceps, hamstrings, the things you don't usually hit in typical only working with your body exercises. If you've never had if you're wheezy about certain animal products, it might be time to upgrade. Like if you're afraid of red meat, because we all come from decades of propaganda saying saturated fat and cholesterol are bad for you. We now know that that's just like the only people still saying that are just like government agencies that we know are just pure propaganda that have they're just backing their big corporate backers. Like it's all that whole narrative is collapsing. But for each of us, we still have to unlearn specific things. So if you're mainly focusing on like chicken as your main meat, it's time to switch to grass-fed red meat, whether that be beef or lamb, or maybe even something more exotic like venison or bison, which are all just so delicious, especially when you sear them hot with just the right spices and salt. And those little changes are going to add up because once you start, eating better, you feel a little bit better, and then you're like, okay, how else? What else can I do? What else can I replace? A lot of people think about elimination diets where they're like, okay, I have to do a cleanse. before I can even figure out how to eat a balanced diet, I need to like only do juice for the next week. Well, no, you probably would just want to like figure out how to have a nice balanced diet before you do any kind of super, salt flesh intense thing that you want to bounce off of with a really balanced diet. Otherwise, it's just going to potentially create, serious gut issues or something.
I love all of this. I think one thing I would add is you reminded me to always look for an ooh. Like even if just once a day, that was just one thing. One way I did this is I bought these cups that I just love the way they look. I love the way it feels in my hand. And every time I open the cabinet and I put that in my hand, I'm like, ooh. And whatever I put in that cup, I make it more special. So and look, it's a $6 cup. And I love what you were saying about what you eat. You want it to be an ooh, like, and the French are like ooh la la ooh, like make it satisfying. And the other thing that you mentioned much earlier in our conversation is how, and guys, I'm 58, so a lot of my generation are still, they still trust the media. Like they haven't been in the comments section enough. So that's one thing I was going to point out to you is, you're a bit younger than me, and your generation grew up with a skepticism of and different tools. You have different research tools when there are thousands and thousands of comments on something. In fact, that was a huge part of my healing journey with my son, with his autoimmune disease of the brain and the seizures and the Tourette's and all that. That's why I started this show. Is I got deep in the internet. I would get deep in comment sections and reviews, and I would cross reference things and cross reference studies, and then go into giant Facebook groups with 10,000 people where you didn't get banned for healing. And so it's I hear in your journey where in the beginning you were just doing whatever the authorities said, but then you got your signals from elsewhere, and you got a much broader point of view about what truly works. And this is one point I need to make to some of my friends my age. There's all this like, is it peer reviewed? At no time in human history have we ever had more peers reviewing anything than we do right now. Like I can post something and millions of people can comment, they can add, they can argue, they can reference other things. I think that was definitely a part of both of our evolutions. Finally, let's give your audience any more ideas with next steps, more direct contact with you, buying your products. Tell us more.
I just started a new Instagram. It's Sculptor of Wellbeing. My my I actually finally hired a social media coach because I've been I just love doing formulation and kind of behind the scenes stuff so much that I was never consistent with my social media. But it's been like weighing on my soul that I'm not fully just unleashing what I've kind of kept to myself. And my coach said, the algorithm's not going to send uh, these older Instagram accounts maybe to the right people. So you got to start a new one. Um, but I'd say if someone's really, if you have realized that your nutrition is always going to evolve and there will always be something that can help you level up and nourish some part of your body or your mind that really is being called to have more care. That's why I started Longevity Power. So longevitypower.com, that's my main brand. And I have 12 different products. They are all based on either adaptogens or functional animal-based nutrition. Those products you can add to whatever you're already doing. So your morning elixir, your meals, and it will dramatically up level the nutrition and the functional energy that you get from your food and drinks so that you can have a much more full day where you don't have 2 p.m. slumps, where you can power through your workouts without relying on caffeine, where you can wake up super energized and be able to go to sleep without waking up in the middle of the night. my nutrition is like all about just creating that lifestyle that is just so nourished that the things that you really want to do are going to be accessible and won't keep your body won't keep bugging you about things the way that it tends to. I'm working on two new products that I hope to launch in the next couple of months. One's going to be called Epic Sleep. It will be a melatonin free super sleep formula that's just all about nourishment. It's all about getting your beauty sleep, having really great REM dream sleep, being able to fall asleep quickly without being knocked out by more sedative herbs that might leave you still feeling groggy in the morning, like super nourishment rather than more of like a drug sleep formula. And I'm working on my Epic Electrolytes formula, which will be the ultimate electrolyte blend. The most electrolyte, or pretty much all electrolyte products, they're skimping on things. They just have like one or two versions of each of the electrolytes, which are sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. And it turns out that every electrolyte has multiple different forms, and some are fast acting, some are medium, and some are slow long term acting. So if you get all of those at once in a really balanced way, not only do you feel like really hydrated, like potentially more hydrated than you've ever felt, but it starts to turn on like a brain and body energy. Like your brain really loves to have that perfect electrolytic balance. Um, so when I first was like, man, I really gotta, because I've been making electrolyte elixirs like for myself all the time. So I just put a bunch of water, some sea salt, some kind of potassium. I was trying to figure out, wait, what potassium do I need? And like lemon and maybe blueberry juice, coconut water in a blender, and having that, and magnesiums usually after a workout or even before bed, because I really like to be hydrated before going to sleep without over watering myself, which will have mean you got to pee more. So you actually wake up still hydrated. I mean, you still have to. You're not going to be like perfectly hydrated by the morning. You'll want to drink something a little bit, but not just like constantly, having to pee. And that eventually led me to like going all the way in the rabbit hole of electrolytes, and super excited about launching that product soon.
That's a big one. With all the confusion around salt and uh, minerals, at the underplay of how important the broad spectrum of minerals, especially electrolytes, it was definitely one of the things that has taken me a while to figure out. And I'm excited to try it. I want to try it because especially athletic people, you deplete yourself, and that depletion can cause negative things when you're trying to be healthy. And I used to be an over waterer,
I would
chugging,
drink like a gallon and a half a day.
and I did not have any idea it was depleting because I was didn't have the minerals that my body was really craving with the water. It was depleted water, and power to you with the spring water. That is like the ultimate structured, mineral rich. And I love the word elixir. Maybe my ooh today that I'll take away is the word elixir. Maybe my morning drink is my morning elixir now. All
Fabulous.
right. All right, Christian. So I'll put the links in the description to your longevitypower.com, to your Sculptor of Wellbeing Instagram account. You're there in Marin, California. I'm down here in Santa Cruz. And we are definitely building the architecture of health here together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deb.
All right. I hope we meet in person
We
someday.
will.
Okay,
I do
good.
too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.